Welcome back, everyone. I just made a video about daily driving a performance car and kind of whether or not you should or shouldn't go down that road. And I kind of want to make a companion video to that of saying, you know, what are the risks of daily driving a performance car? I talked about a lot of good stuff in that video for kind of the prospective buyer, but this is kind of for the person who's already made that leap, and now what should you expect? So first things first, how do I say, legal safety, if you will. And by that I mean, you're driving a high performance car. This car can presumably go 140, 50, 60, 70, 200 miles an hour, depending on what car you get. And that is much faster than you, A, can legally go on public roads, B, need to go on public roads, or C, any of the cars around you, unless you happen to see another sports car. So with that being said, as a daily driver, this poses a unique problem if one were to hypothetically drive the car anywhere near its potential on a semi-daily basis. Because if you take that car out every, once a week, once a month, and you go do 130 everywhere, there's some potential for police to see you and pull you over and arrest you. If you're doing it nearly every day, not only does that potential go higher of just a chance encounter with a police officer, but you're also kind of getting on police's radar potentially, where they're saying, okay, that guy looks like he's going fast, and maybe they don't have you, in a situation where they're going to pull you over, but they see you day after day whipping past traffic and, driving somewhat aggressively, and all of a sudden you become a bit of a person of interest to them, and you don't want to do that. That's for sure. And I don't think it takes as much as people realize. If you're in a bright red Camaro, as I am right now, which is a relatively noticeable car, if you then chose to drive it like a complete jerk, they're probably going to know who you are eventually, right? It might take a few months, even a few years, but eventually they're going to piece it together if you're on the roads with the thing every single day. So that's where, if you're going to drive a sports car very aggressively often, keep to the darker colors, more than likely would be a good idea, and maybe keep your exhaust a little quieter and just run a little bit of a lower profile. I'm not advocating you go around speeding, and especially not reckless driving, but I'm just saying if one were to do that, that would be the thing to do. The other tool to get is a radar detector. That will drastically reduce your risk of getting pulled over. Now I will say, in some states they're starting to use laser more and more, in which case the radar detector does technically pick up laser. However, by the time the laser hits you, you are likely going to get pulled over if you're going too fast, because there's really no lag time in between having cars ahead of you get picked up and your radar detector noticing that laser input, because it is a trigger on a gun, so they're only turning it on when they see a car going too fast. Anyway, tangent there. But yeah, I mean, your driver's license, depending on how responsible you are, could be in severe risk if you're all of a sudden driving a performance car around every day and enjoying it a little too much. How do we mitigate this risk? Number one, don't buy the sports car or buy a less powerful sports car. That is always an option. Again, if you already own whatever car you already own, this kind of goes back to my 400 horsepower-ish car argument. But if you own an 800 horsepower car, 1,000 horsepower car, then you owe it to yourself, if you are a speed demon, to go on a track, let off some steam, enjoy the car for what it truly is, and then come back to the road and try to drive it in a somewhat normal manner. Additionally, don't be on the interstate mobbing and cutting in and out of traffic like that Audi just did. He really did. But anyway, don't be doing that and driving aggressively, because you'll increase your notoriety, your GTA stars, right? You want to go on back roads, not on back roads with a bunch of people, not on back roads where homeowners are going to be calling the police, but go drive spiritedly on roads that you're in the middle of the country and the only thing you're going to hit is a cow, and not be putting people's lives at risk. That's the key there. So that's kind of the number one biggest risk we needed to talk about. Number two is that I want to discuss is just kind of and this is sort of tied to one, but the risk of judgment, for lack of a better term. And in my opinion, this is something you should not care about whatsoever. But I ran into it when I first bought this car, and I want to talk about it. So I was 23 years old, 22 years old when I bought my Camaro. I did finance it. I didn't take out a bunch of money for it. It was relatively cheap back then. I had just paid off my student loans from college, and I wanted to treat myself myself to something a little bit fun. I also had a 40 some odd mile commute, and I didn't want to drive my then aging 2005 Silverado back and forth to work, just blowing miles on a pickup truck at 13 miles per gallon. I wanted to combine a fun car with a commuter, which is what this Camaro did for me. And so I was very excited to buy it. And I rolled up to work in my then only 4 or 5 year old car with pretty low miles. Very, very nice car. Very, very, much higher end of a vehicle than what a lot of people in the parking lot twice my age had, right? And I'd gotten it relatively cheap used, but people don't know that. They think you paid sticker kind of thing. And I got a lot of judgment for it. I had a lot of coworkers that I never would have thought would have been kind of rude and mean about a car that I bought, which is like a nobody's business kind of thing. But people were like kind of rude about it. And it actually almost made me sell it. I gotta be honest with you. I just felt a certain way about it, and I really started to believe a little bit that I did make a bad financial decision and that these people were right and I shouldn't have bought it. And so like for the first probably 8 to 10 months of ownership, like the loan was a little bit higher than I wanted it to be. Like I was in the $20,000 some odd dollar mark, which doesn't sound like a lot by nowadays standards, but was by that 2017 standards. So like I was paying what I considered kind of a lot of money left in this loan. People at work were telling me like I shouldn't have bought this car. It just had me feeling a certain way about it. And what's funny is as the years went on and I paid the loan off quickly and I really got into using the car more and doing track days and just understanding what a car like this provides, it really changed my perspective, and it made me look back on it and say, wow, I can't believe how immature my 50 plus year old coworkers were for being, jealous or whatever word you want to attach to it, envious of my purchase and my ability to purchase this car. But also just like, I don't know how much I would have missed if I had sold it, and how much I had cared back then about what people thought in the way that I don't nowadays. And yeah, it's easier said than done, but you really need to kind of say to yourself that if you buy a flashier car, an enthusiast's car, even if you don't mean for it to be a tool to show off to others and say, hey, look at me, I'm driving this super cool car, people will interpret it that way. And I just want you to be ready and be warned that that will happen, and you should expect that, and just mentally prepare for that. But you can totally, haters are going to hate, right? You can totally kind of get over that and do what you got to do. Don't ever let somebody else make a financial or other decision for you. Make sure it is within your own, purview, and make sure that it's a decision you're comfortable with. I guess what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I guess the third warning I would give you, if you're, you bought this sports car, is fuel. So your owner's manual in most sports cars is going to tell you either 91 octane or higher recommended, or 91 octane or higher required. Now, if it says required, you're going to have to run the higher octane. Sorry, it is what it is. You should have made sure that you could afford to do that before you bought the car. Hopefully you did, and that's not a big issue. However, this car, 87 octane is usable. You can use it, but 91 octane is recommended. I have ran 87 octane in this car. I've ran all the way up to 93 octane in this car. You do feel a power difference with 87 octane, no doubt. You will actually feel a difference. It's a real thing. I've calculated it with the Draggy app. It's a real thing. However, it will safely run the car. And if I'm going on a road trip and I'm just blasting through miles and going, 300 miles down the interstate, I don't necessarily care if I've lost 30 or 40 horsepower when I'm just cruising on the interstate in 6th gear anyway. So I will happily run 87 for those journeys sometimes, and save myself a little bit of money. If I know I'm going to go to a track day, well then obviously I'm putting 93 octane in it, because the engine's going to get real hot and I want the most power and all that kind of stuff. So I guess my warning would be you might be spending more for fuel, and or if nothing else, you're going to be kind of having to now think about what type of fuel you put in the car and when you put that type of fuel in the car, if you don't just say to yourself, I'm going to put 93 in it all the time. And that's not that big of a deal, but it's mildly annoying. Along with that, if you're real cheap like this guy, me, you will find that at almost every single gas station, in order to get a 91 octane mix or even like an 89 octane mix, it is actually cheaper to mix 87 and 93 or 94 if they offer it, which some of the stations around here do. And then, so what you'll have to do is you'll have to ring your cart up twice, fill about half your tank with 87 and about half with 93 or whatever mix you're going for, and then it will take you a little bit longer to pump. So it's just, that's kind of the burden of owning a sports car, right? You either got to pay the money to just do the higher octane and never worry about it, or you've got to find these little tricks to maximize your cost per mile and keep that cost down, I should say, minimize your cost per mile. So these are just kind of some of the things you're going to start doing if you own a sports car. Again, depends on the level of sports car, if it needs the premium fuel to begin with. Kind of in a similar vein as that, I think my next warning would be you're probably going to care more about it. Things like dents and dings and scratches, and you're probably going to find that you're trying to park further away in parking lots, and you're not going to maybe want to like have it valet parked because you're worried about a valet doing something stupid to your clutch, or you're not going to want to have a friend borrow your car and potentially scuff the wheels parallel parking it. All that kind of stuff. You've now turned your car into a little bit more of a possession that you're proud of and are trying to take even better care of than you may have before with like your previous vehicle. And that is something to really consider, because depending on your lifestyle, that may not be conducive, right? If you've got a wife or a girlfriend that borrows your car a lot and they can't even drive standard, that's going to potentially screw you up, or you have to teach them. There's time investment in that. Or you're just going to be worried when they take the car out if maybe they're not the best about worrying about door dings and stuff like that. So you really just got to ask yourself, if all that extra stress is worth it, or again, you just have to say to yourself, well, if it gets dinged, it gets dinged. If it gets dented, it gets dented. And that's kind of more my opinion personally. I take the best care that I reasonably can, but I parallel park this thing. I park it in parking lots where I need to. It goes into cities if it needs to. It goes to the airport if it needs to. It's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I want to enjoy the car. But again, depends on your perspective and where your tolerance for that sort of thing. So another warning I would give, car insurance. I actually didn't find that my insurance went up by that much. However, especially if you have a two-door car, from what I understand, your insurance, or a two-seater car, your insurance can go up a lot. This is a two-door car with 4 seats, so it's technically a 4-seater, even though it's really not a 4-seater when you look at the amount of space that there is. But that being said, my insurance is really not crazy on this. It's also not worth a ton of money anymore, but even when it was worth more money, my insurance was pretty comparable to my 05 Silverado, which has always been worth at least half of this, if not quite a bit less than half of this car, and it was always a similar amount of money. So you're getting a benefit of the car itself not being as much of a deadly thing if you hit someone than like a pickup truck would be. It will be more than your random Honda Accord type car though, of course, so just keep that in mind. Again, good to get an insurance quote before you even go to buy the car, just to make sure that you can afford all the little bit of additional expenses. Kind of going along with the seat quantity, if it's a 2-seater car and you're coming from a 4-seater car, you might say to yourself, wow, I never use the back seats anyway, that'll be fine. And you might be right. However, you may find that you were using the back seats as like storage a little bit more than you realized. You may also find that you were using the back seats for the occasional passenger, but that occasion is more often than you originally thought. I just feel like there's even been times in the Camaro that I've crammed people in the back seat, and we've actually gone relatively far places. So if I had a Corvette or something with only 2 seats, I would have kind of not been able to use my car for something fun potentially. So just keep that in mind. There may be scenarios where you find that you're actually using some of the features of your current car more than you thought, and hey, maybe you can live without them, but just go into it with eyes wide open from that perspective. So anyways, that's about 14 minutes on this topic, so I'll wrap it up here, but hopefully this helps somebody in either their future purchase or with their current purchase of a sports car. If you already own the sports car, don't let this video scare you. You'll find ways to adapt and overcome, and guess what? Life is sometimes about trial and error. If you tried and fail and you wind up selling the car and getting something else, hey man, you learn from it, and that's all good too. So as always guys, thanks for watching. God bless America, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.